Good afternoon. This video is going to be about illegal shorting. So please subscribe, like, and share, and pass it around. So let's make sure this issue is addressed by everyone and is passed around to everyone. And remember also to continue to take action, because action beats depression. And this is a very stressful circumstance. So with regard to especially MMTLP people, I urge you to continue to take action and move forward. Obviously, this particular video concerns illegal shorting. And just kind of like put a framework in. I have no problem conceptually with shorting stocks. It's To me, it's like if you've ever been to Las Vegas, if you play craps, it's the people who play the don't pass line. You're betting against the field and the players, and although it's cynical in nature, it does provide some form of balance to the market. Now, we all believe that hedge funds, politicians, super wealthy, etc., get financial advantages that do not make it down to the public, such as ourselves. We even accept that. We know it happens, but we accept that, and there's not much we can do about it. It's when it surpasses acceptable means, such as with MMTLP, that moves us and causes us to take action. It should be noted with regard to shorting that it impacts all companies, all stocks, all investors. For example, in a recent trial involving Elon Musk and Tesla and certain tweets that were made in 2018 with regard to taking the firm private, when he was testifying during trial, he indicated that the reason why the stock went down subsequent to that time was because of the shorting and the incredibly and immense shorting of the stock. And even though that trial occurred in San Francisco, he obtained a unanimous verdict in his favor. So there must have been something to the fact, and the jury must have believed some degree of the existence of illegal shorting, even though that certainly wasn't a environment that would be pro Elon Musk. So we all know the problem is the illegal shorting of stocks. And we know that there's been prior examples where shares have just shown up. For example, that Dole pineapple case, amongst others. And in that case, just as in MMTLP and others, shares were created out of thin air and illegally. And in this environment, let's say MMTLP, since I'm familiar with that, we know there are seeming confirmed allegations that in this and in all cases, the shorts don't even have to locate shares. So in other words, when they want to obtain a short share, they call whoever they call, that person has to reasonably locate a share. Doesn't mean they have to find it, but it has to be reasonably locatable. And oftentimes, that is not the case. There is no share to be located, or a share is located on multiple occasions. Sometimes a transaction is misidentified as a long transaction when it was a short transaction. Sometimes short positions are moved to offshore entities because once it leaves the country or offshore, it's no longer counted as a short position. Sometimes the shorts are just moved out of country. Sometimes they're seemingly hidden in manipulative practices involving CUSIP numbers, and the CUSIP or CUSIP numbers are basically the identification number of a security. Sometimes they're tokenized, but there's various means by which short holders, hedge funds, can hide the short transaction. And the regulators know this, and the politicians know this. But as of this point in time, they have not taken any kind of substantial action. And because the deck is stacked, against consumers, it's hard for consumers to get to the information that they need to prove up that point. But that's what we're trying to do. We also know that in these short strategies that they often attack poorly financed projects and entities and often small biotechs. And these are often cash strapped, and they know it. And they attack the cash strap and exacerbate the issue of the cash problem with those companies by further shorting those entities. So it is almost like a cyclical downward spiral. The effect often is to bankrupt a lot of entities that shouldn't have been bankrupt, and to put out many medical entities that shouldn't have been bankrupt too. And those entities would have provided, or at least some of them could have provided, life-saving cures to humanity. However, the shorts and those supporting illegal shorting don't care. All they care about is making money and hiding, at least partially, the proceeds that they have taken in a illegal and illicit matter. The illegal shorting creates countless examples of failures to deliver, but the fact is, it not only harms bank accounts, but it literally harms citizens' health, and it's just completely unethical in that regard. Why is there an interest in illegal shorting to put companies out of business? Because if they put companies out of business, and especially if those companies file for bankruptcy, then the short provisions never have to close their positions. If they never have to close their positions, they don't declare the profit they made, nor seemingly file an appropriate and accurate tax return, nor, most importantly, pay taxes that should be due. This not only harms shareholders, but damages all taxpayers and all citizens of our country. It deprives citizens of services that should be available, increases the national deficit and borrowing costs by withholding tax payment, and also seemingly constitutes money laundering. However, that is not the worst part. It has destroyed individuals from just getting a fair shake. Since I've been involved with MMTLP, I've heard countless stories of those who have been truly harmed in a heartbreaking manner, and who will have a very difficult time getting whole no matter what. They are really suffering. Their lives have been forever altered, their trust and confidence in humanity rightfully shaken. And this is just a tragedy. Now we move to the regulators. The regulators are highly ineffectual. FINRA, the SEC, Gary Gensler, phooey to you all. You are supposed to protect the public, but all you do is hide behind meaningless words and act in a manner which seems to protect your own cronies. There is an unacceptable conflict of interest in having regulators who are involved or will be involved in the financial firms that they regulate. If they speak out against someone today like Ari Rubinstein, for example, they may be limiting their future opportunities. I strongly believe, it's my opinion, that we need to push for legislation that does not permit former financial industry people to become regulators and or vice versa for a minimum cooling off period of 3 years. So if I work, and I use the term loosely, for Citadel today, I can't work for any regulatory body for at least 3 years after I leave Citadel, if that is my last stop in the financial industry. I believe this ungodly, incestuous relationship between regulators and hedge funds, etc., is at the heart of the problems we face today, and it needs to be handled. So we have tax evasion and money laundering with illegal shorts and harm to society. What other harm occurs? We have dilution. For example, as opposed to 165 million shares, the pie is split into 500 million shares. So even notwithstanding everything else, we are getting less than promise. This is also apparent as to MMTLP, whereas there was supposed to be a one-to-one transaction from MMTLP to NextBridge. How can that be the case where there is illegal shorts that have grossly diluted the shares of both? On top of that, the brokers who have been nailed make up stories every day. In the last 3 days alone, my Fidelity account has reflected 3 different sets of numbers on a NextBridge security that does not trade, according to Fidelity, has no value, and for all purposes appears that Fidelity and others are still engaging in inappropriate conduct as of today. Moreover, I saw evidence today that Fidelity undertook actions related to the security on the 9th of December, even though there was a halt on the 8th. So this problem impacts all retail shareholders. Our money and remedies are being stolen away by the greed and entities and individuals that do not care. We are negatively impacted, if not financially, but in our health or in the health of our loved ones. Not legal advice, but now is the time to turn up the pressure on your legislatures. Call them and email them. Tell them if they are not willing to protect citizens, then you have no use for them, and you will not vote for them, and you will actively work against them. I have one example. There's a congresswoman, not my congresswoman, in California that was, at least took the position in her first term of being pro-consumer, and I supported that. And when the MMTLP matter came up, I sent her numerous texts and communications, and she never responded. Her name, by the way, is Katie Porter. She's now running for Senator of California, and I have no interest in voting for her. Not legal advice, not political advice, but basically, if I find that someone's not supporting my interests, I'm not going to support their interests. And if we all did that, perhaps we'd have more influence, I believe. So contact your brokers and communicate and continue to communicate your displeasure. Some people believe that everyone should request that their brokers arbitrate their individual claims now, a burden that would be difficult to handle. I'm not suggesting that, but it is an interesting concept. Keep calling FINRA and the SEC. Contact the House Financial Service Community. The more time passes, the more aggressive our communications must be. We don't want anybody to forget what is going on. Set up teams to call. March outside your congressperson's office. Call your senator. Ask for the resignation of Gary Gensler. Take action and continue to take action for as long as it takes. Call the White House. Call the FBI. Are there tax issues that warrant contacting the IRS and Secret Service? Is Fidelity lying to the IRS? Are other brokers? I'm not going to tell you the answers to those questions, but the questions themselves might suggest the answers. The bottom line is that this illegal conduct should be treated as such, and the felonious actors, if any, should go to prison. and money should go to the rightful parties. Taxes should rightfully be paid, and individual retail investors should not be harmed by the intentional misconduct of hedge funds and others, and the blind eye that is given in regulation by the parties that we've spoken about. So keep up the work. I know it's difficult, but keep moving forward. Call your congressman, make a point. Illegal shorting is not appropriate, legal, and harms the country and its citizens. I will continue to report on this as we go. Be well. Talk to you soon.